Joining us now to discuss is Scott Horton, the director of the Libertarian Institute. Scott, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me back, Kara.
Great. So I know this issue is fraught with a lot of emotions for people. I feel like dancing around landmines all the time with this. So all I ask is that if someone's watching this and they hear something they perhaps don't like, just be an adult about it, consider it and weigh it. Take what you like from my show and leave behind what you don't. But under no circumstances should anyone lob the nasty attack of anti-Semitism for saying that maybe Israel shouldn't level Gaza or maybe the U.S. shouldn't preemptively bomb Iran. So now with those caveats out of the way, explain for us, Scott, some of the parallels that you're seeing between what response Al-Qaeda tried to provoke from us with 9/11 and what response Hamas may seem to be trying to provoke by attacking Israeli civilians so brutally.
Well, thank you very much. So this is my article today on the Libertarian Institute website, and it's a big Twitter thread thingy that I did the other day on Twitter. People can find it. It's about the tactic, or really the strategy of this kind of brutal terrorism. And I'll ask people to remember back, you may be too young for this, but in 2007, which was still a full 6.5 years after September 11th, Ron Paul, the great congressman from Texas, Republican from Texas, got into a big argument with Rudy Giuliani in the Republican debate. And the fight was over the motive for the September 11th attack. And Ron Paul said, listen, this was blowback. Remember, we had been bombing Iraq from bases in Saudi Arabia for 10 years before they attacked us on September 11th. And Rudy Giuliani had a nervous breakdown and everybody in the room got upset. But Ron Paul won over tens of millions of Americans with that. It was called the Giuliani moment. And think about it. What he was doing, Ron Paul, Dr. Paul, was serving up the most bitter pill that Bill Clinton, and for that matter, Bush's father, had gotten us into this mess with these guys. And tens of millions of Americans went, whoa, you know what? That's true. I remember that. Bill Clinton did bomb Iraq for 8 years straight, picking up where Bush Sr. had left off and from bases in Saudi Arabia. That is, in fact, what turned Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan and Bush and, yes, Clinton's Al-Qaeda mercenaries against the United States more than any other thing. The second thing was support for Israel. And the purpose, that was the motive, okay? But the strategy behind September 11th, Kara, was to provoke an overreaction by the United States of America. Bin Laden said it over and over again. He didn't think we were going to run away scared, crying. He wanted us to invade Afghanistan so that he could replicate the Soviets' disaster. When in the 1980s, under Carter and Reagan, America had backed the Mujahideen. Remember Rambo 3? We backed the Mujahideen to help destroy the Soviet Union. And it did help to destroy the Soviet Union, bogging them down and helping them lose that war in the 1980s. And so Al-Qaeda was trying to replicate that. So what does that mean? What that means is all the big, tough, right-wing, macho Republicans of America from 2001 through 2007 and change were believing lies. And we're basing their policies on lies and letting Bush and Cheney, and then for that matter, Barack Obama, get away with murder based on a completely insane preset that Al-Qaeda started this war because they hate us because we're good and free. And now we have no choice but to defend ourselves by invading 7 countries. And when you say it now, it sounds completely stupid. And no right-wingers believe in it anymore. We all call these wars of choice. In other words, we did not have to do that. As Donald Trump said, going to the Middle East, not just Iraq, but going to the Middle East was the worst decision any president ever made. He was hanging that around the neck of W. Bush. And I'm sorry, a little bit of tough love, but around the necks of all the conservatives who also fell for it and supported George Bush and his policies during that time. And the mistake that they made, Kara, was they got all upset. Instead of being calm and cool and collected and rational and just asking themselves, what if we're just reading the pages of a journal from the counterterrorism school at West Point?